right. All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to our 2020-21 season kickoff. Hello to the people of our page. Hello on Instagram and Facebook. For those of you who I've yet to meet, I'm Laura Perquette, and I am the founder and artistic director of Thai Collaborative Ensemble, or CCE for short. I play the oboe and I sing, and I enjoy performing with the ensemble in both capacities.
And for those of you whom I have yet to meet, I'm Talar Kostigian, and I am the Operations and Music Director of CCE. I also play the piano, and that is where you will find me a lot of the time.
So we are co-directors of this venture, and we are so excited that we are now in our 6th year of operation. So Talar, it looks like all of this technology is actually working in our favor right now. It looks like we've got folks from both Instagram and Facebook tuning in, and that's what tech runs are for.
Yes, so usually by now we would be well on our way with our season with at least one concert cycle under our belts. But because of the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, we and many of our fellow musicians and sister ensembles have been busy reevaluating how to make music together and share it. Thankfully, we have access to this technology that is working so perfectly right now that allows for virtual performances, and we have redesigned our season to be conducive to this virtual format. As always, we remain committed to bringing you the innovative and high caliber music programming that you are accustomed to, and we will do so in a way that ensures the safety of both our artists and our audiences.
Absolutely. Our people are our first priority, and for us, that includes our audiences as well as our artists. For those of you who have followed our social media pages with some regularity, may have asked, what's with the yes and CCE hashtag? I think I just saw a text from someone, Talar, saying that it's still saying starting soon. Are you
Oh,
seeing that on your end?
I am not.
One
I
second.
see
So,
us live right
okay.
now on Facebook
All right.
and also on Instagram.
Yep. Oh,
Then I'm
Charles.
gonna hope.
It looks like Charles posted some comments. Hey, Charles Surska.
Great. Okay, well,
All
I'm
right.
glad that everyone can see it.
All right.
I'm just gonna
Yeah, we're gonna go with it for now.
let's
Thank
go
you,
with it for
everybody,
now.
for
Perfect.
your
I'm glad
patience.
it's working.
All right. Thank you, everyone. All right.
Perfect.
So, all right, let's get this presentation started. Thank you for bearing with us, everybody.
Yes, thank you.
All right. All right, we're now going to share the screen in earnest. And
Yes, let's get this party started.
yes. Right. All right. So this yes and hashtag that you all may have seen on our social media pages.
Yes, it's our theme for the season.
Yes, it is. So this phrase has been a guiding light for us in this coming year. So yes and is one of the tenets of improvisational comedy, where a participant accepts what another participant has given them and then expands on it. As we mentioned previously, COVID-19 is unfortunately still out there, so we are adding a virtual live stream component to all of our 2020-21 season main stage performances. To remain engaged with making music and sharing it with you all, it is also our hope and our plan that this will help us continue to reach wider audiences both during and after the pandemic subsides.
Yes, and in addition, the recent civil unrest in our country has catalyzed for us a deeper examination of how we can better contribute to establishing equity in our field and in our world. A main pillar of our mission since the beginning has been to represent diverse voices, explore repertoire and composers who have been overlooked, and to place their music in conversation with the beloved classics in the chamber music canon. Part of this means continuing to include more music written by women, and BIPOC, which stands for Black, Indigenous, People of Color. Another part of this means prioritizing racial equity within all areas of our organization and fostering dialogue about organizational and structural racism within our field and in our greater community.
These are all in line with our 3 pillars of honoring history, advocating for new works, and engaging with communities.
Absolutely. So, Laura, what do you think? Should we take everybody down memory lane a little bit?
Let's do it.
Okay.
All right, so these are some photos from our last season from all 3 of our main stage concerts. And we have a little excerpt from the concert we did back in October of 2019. So that was an excerpt from our October 2019 performance of Jenny Brandon's Found Objects on the Beach. In addition to composing, Jenny is also a conductor, educator, yoga teacher, and she also trained as a mezzo-soprano. This evocative piece was inspired by a walk on the beach where she found several objects such as tumbled stones, sea glass, seashells, and even a feather on the sand. This movement, driftwood, was inspired by a piece of driftwood floating along the shoreline. In our 2019-20 season, we enjoyed 3 full concert cycles from October through March, and we also enjoyed a couple collaborations.
Yes, so the Chicago Chamber Choir has quickly become a favorite collaborator of ours. In our 2018-19 season, we partnered with them in a series of concerts that benefited the night ministry.
Yes, and we raised about $2,400 for them, which is awesome. So we actually kicked off our season last year with the with a collaboration with the Chicago Chamber Choir earlier in October of 2019 for one of their concert series. And in those concerts, our cellist Andrew Hesse played with them on this beautiful piece by Norwegian composer Ola Yelo.
Yeah, it really makes you want to keep listening, doesn't it?
Mhm. Yeah.
So, you can check their album out. This is on an album of live music that was recorded in concert. And their album is called Live Art. And you can go on the Chicago Chamber Choir website. That's chicagochamberchoir.org. And you can hear some more stunning choral music. They are really quite something. So check
Yep.
them out. They actually have a concert tonight at 7:30
Yes.
on Facebook Live. So if you want, you can grab some tickets to them and go and watch that after this.
Yeah.
So in March, shortly before we had to shelter in place, we partnered with Lyric Music School for a weekend residency with a Saturday evening performance of the full program, followed by a Sunday afternoon workshop with lyric students and their families. And that is actually what you're seeing in the photos on this slide.
And that was a lot of fun. For that, we performed excerpts of works from our Saturday concerts, and folks are given the opportunity to draw and write what they heard from the music. And both the kids and their family members shared some really great things.
And with you, we wanted to share an excerpt of one of the pieces we performed on that program called Call Out by Kamala Sankaram. This performance features guest baritone Brian Hupp. You can find him on Facebook. He's got a page. Cellist Andrew Hesse and myself on the piano. So Kamala is she's such a wonderful person, and she was so friendly and collaborative with us when we were working with her to make this project a reality. And she is really establishing herself as someone who writes for the theater. And she also does a fair amount of genre bending.
Yeah, and in the spirit of shouting out our fellow Chicago organizations, Chicago Opera Theater is virtually presenting her opera, Taking Up Serpents, at the end of February.
Yeah, so definitely check that out. And before we play this movement, we'd like to share a little bit about The Field, which is the poem Sankaram set in this movement. The Field is by the 13th century Sufi mystic poet Rumi. In it, he imagines a place beyond conflict, a field where our differences spark neither rage nor hatred, but harmony and the recognition of oneness with each other. Here are his words that you will hear Brian sing. Study me as long as you like. You will not know me. for I differ in 100 ways from what you see me to be. Put yourself behind my eyes and see me as I see myself. For I have chosen to dwell in a place you cannot see. Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I will meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. Ideas, language, even each other, no longer makes sense.
There, 1 second. All right. Earlier this week, we interviewed a couple of our roster artists, Caroline Rothstein and Danny Simandl, as well as our guest composer for the season, Griffin Candy.
And these were all such wonderful conversations. So let's start with Caroline
Let's
first.
do it.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Caroline. It's such a pleasure to have you, and we are looking forward to our conversation today. So, I guess our first question is tell us a little bit about yourself, tell us a little bit about your instrument.
So I have been playing with Tri Collaborative Ensemble for 2 full seasons now, and as well as a couple of concerts before I joined as an official roster artist. So this year is going to be my third official year with the group. And I'm a violinist. I perform all over in the Chicago area in orchestras, as well as the concertmaster of Manitoba Underground Opera up in Winnipeg, although not this summer. Normally it's my Canadian home away from home, but this year it did not happen.
How did you come to work with CCE?
Well, that would have been through Talar. So Talar and I went to college together, and we had a bunch of classes together, and I think bonded pretty early on because we were both double degree students in music and English literature. So I don't even remember exactly which classes. I know it was the big music history full year that we had. I think we also did world music together. It was a bunch of things, and we always liked working together because I think we both grew up as those people who, in collaborative academic projects, we were the ones who were always like used to doing everything. So we just chose to work with each other, and then it was a great experience. And so then we finally started playing together, I think senior year, and it was Sonata class boot camp, which was a very intense but extremely productive and rewarding quarter with Dr. Wong, and that was really one of my first experiences crafting, where it really felt like we were collaborating on our musical vision. Because normally, up until that point, you bring your sonata to your teacher tells you how they want you to play it better, and most of the time the pianist that we would be working with was terrific, but very much a coach. And so it didn't really feel like we were building something together. But then when I got to play with Talar, Dr. Wong was coaching us, but she was helping us do what we wanted to do better and supporting us as we determined what it was we were after.
Yeah, I'd almost forgotten about that. I can't believe I forgot. It was such a formative class.
Mm-hmm.
It was
So yeah,
that
so
was
then
like
it
the
was we were
start.
both living in Chicago, and you had
Yeah.
already founded CCE, and it had been going for a few years. And my first couple of concerts with the group was just as a guest, or I think the first one I think I was a substitute, um, and then and got to do some very cool projects. Because I think it was that spring that we did the world premiere. We did Dale Trembore's piece, which was an amazing thing to get to do without even officially being a member of the group yet. And then I joined the following fall, which I think was
That's right.
2018.
Yeah,
The
the
Gleam.
Gleam. Yes.
That was good. That was a
Yeah,
good concert.
yeah.
Well, I guess that transitions pretty neatly into our next question, which is, what's your favorite part of working with us as an ensemble?
Well, so I think, yeah, I was thinking about this, and I think the big part of it is that I get to work with colleagues where I don't just admire their musicianship. It's not just that everyone plays well, it's that I admire everyone's work ethic and intellect and character. And so it feels like that same feeling we had many years ago when we were working on our first ever sonata together, where you walk in and you know that you're going to get a lot done. And everyone walks in with questions, everyone walks in with ideas, and so it really feels like we're all meeting each other where we are, and everyone's ready to pull their weight and do whatever they need to do in service of our music.
So what does collaboration mean to you, and what makes you seek it out?
Well, yeah, I think like what I was saying before, obviously right now collaboration means a great deal because we are all isolated. And so I was in an orchestra pit on March 6th and haven't been anywhere since other than at home and teaching and practicing, but not making music with people. So the idea of like what Talara and I are going to get to do in January, feels like coming up for air after all this time. But I think it really just comes to like a meeting of the minds and understanding that we still have a personal responsibility to bring absolutely everything we can bring to the table, especially right away from the first rehearsal, because we are usually on a compressed timeline here. Once we start, we have probably a couple of weeks, 3 weeks to get things really together. So there is a great deal of responsibility in individual preparation, but then we have to be flexible and adaptable enough to understand that the product is going to be totally different than whatever idea we have developed and conjured in our own minds. And it's not something that anyone can do on our own. It's really only going to happen once we have 2 or 3 or 6 of us all in the room together.
So it's sort of this spontaneous creation after a dedicated time of preparation. There's always that spark that happens in a live performance when you're with other people on that stage. That's kind of what
and I'm very grateful, especially with this group, to be surrounded by artists who really do feel like compassionate players on stage, because you're in a vulnerable state when you're performing in front of an audience. But I think about how it feels like to play with you, Talara or Laura. One, it feels like you're just up there with your friends, but you really feel grounded, like that you can do something, and that whoever's on stage with you is going to respond to what you're doing, and that you have the humility to respond to them when they may choose to do something else on stage, again, even if it's not how you originally had envisioned it going.
Yeah, it's really kind of an act of empathy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Going into it.
And a teensy bit of improvisation. Even after all the framework, when you were talking about passing it on, I kept thinking of yes and, which is kind of our official theme of the season.
Yeah, and I'm a terrible improviser. Like the idea of doing anything like that could not be more terrifying to me. But I do know that a huge part of that is having the back of everyone else who's on stage with you, that it is your job really, and people do describe it as being in service of your colleagues and other performers on stage. And I absolutely get that feeling with this group, even though we're thankfully always playing from an established score and I never have to make anything up.
Well, Caroline, thank you so much. What a great conversation. And we're so glad that
Thank you
joined
for
us.
having me.
This was just so lovely. Thank you so much. So, in between these interviews, we will share some audience favorites from our last couple of seasons. Featured here is an excerpt from our January 2019 performance of the 19th century French composer Louise Farrenc's trio for clarinet, cello, and piano. This is Opus 44. Farrenc was a prolific and well-known composer, virtuoso pianist, and educator in her time, but she faded from the pages of history after her death in 1875. Fortunately for all of us, she is now enjoying a resurgence, and in a moment you will hear why.
Indeed. Here we go. Oh, that was
Yeah,
lovely.
doesn't that just put you in such a good mood?
Yeah.
So, so next up, we have a conversation with Danny Samandel, who is the other violinist on our roster.
Yeah.
Danny, it's so wonderful to see you. It's so wonderful to talk with you. Looking forward to our conversation today. Could you start by just telling us a little bit about yourself and how long you've been with CCE?
Sure. I play the violin, and I split my time between Chicago and Michigan. And I do a lot of my performing in both states, in the Midwest area. And then I also run a summer camp in Michigan, which is this giant sign behind me. It's called Superior String Alliance. And I've been playing with CCE for 4 years now, which seems like the time is just shot by so quickly. I can't believe it's only been 4 years.
Yeah, for sure. So, how did you come to work with us?
I was thinking about this the other day because it was one of those like classic, like, who knows, like who gave who someone's name or something, because I didn't initially know you, Talar, or Laura. I believe it was some mutual violin friends that were like, oh, hey, like, do you want to play with this group? It's kind of like a co-op of string players and singers and wind players. And I was like, that sounds great. And then the first concert that I ended up playing on was with this really cool piece that I had never heard of, but is like one of my all-time favorite pieces now, which is like this chamber piece about a bunch of utensils in a kitchen and like love and drama and all this other stuff. So, and then the rest is history. I mean, you guys had me hooked from that piece on.
Yeah, I think that piece you were talking about was Martineau's Revue de Cuisine.
Yes,
Yes, it was. It's
that
like
was it.
That's a,
That was the one.
that's a fun one. That's on the must bring back one of these days, and hopefully before too long. It's like, let's move on out of here, COVID.
pieces.
Yeah.
When we can
Yes.
do house concerts again safely, like that's one of the
Sure.
things I hope we can do is like, here's some music, here's a little amuse-bouche.
Yes, to
Here's some
go
more
with your listening pleasure.
yes.
Yeah, Liz, maybe we should get people to like dress up in like costumes. Like somebody's a spoon and somebody's like a pot, and they're just like passing out food the whole concert. Like honestly, if I'm not playing a concert, like I'll volunteer myself to do that.
And this is why we love you, Danny.
Yes, this is
So,
why we appreciate you.
You guys don't need me to play anything. I'll just dress up as a fork. It's cool.
so, maybe we've touched on this a little bit already, but what is your favorite part of working with us?
Uh, I think it's so cool because, like I was saying before, like it's this very unique situation of like a co-op of musicians. So it's kind of this cool thing where, from season, well, even concert to concert, we get to work with a different group of people. And also like as a string player, it's really cool because oftentimes if we're playing in a group that is playing multiple concerts together throughout the year, it'll be like a string quartet or a string piano trio or something like that. And string players don't often get to see this kind of repertoire that's like chamber music that has a singer in it or a wind player in it. So it's this like really cool opportunity to be able to like touch on this repertoire that honestly like mostly I've never heard of, and I'm just like, oh great, that piece sounds awesome, and I would have never known about it otherwise. So it's this really great way to bring alive this music that like me as a string player I just never would have heard of otherwise, which is a great opportunity.
Yeah, that's such a great thing to hear, and that's sort of a hallmark of our programming, right? Is we do try to include as many of those works that encompass all as possible. And it's just great to hear that that's something that you enjoy about our group,
Yeah.
for sure. So I guess
Absolutely.
kind of
Yeah.
rolling off of that and into our next topic, what does that collaboration mean to you? What does collaboration in general mean to you? Why is it important to you? And why do you seek it out?
Honestly, I think collaboration is just a fact of life. I mean, you're pretty hard pressed to be a person who does not have to work with another human in any capacity. So the fact that it's just like a way that we work, it's a rhythm of how we work as humans, you might as well embrace it and have fun with it. And like the best kind of collaboration seems to come from being with small ensembles because everybody's voice has a chance to be heard. It's a lot of really cool ideas come to the forefront, and it's a lot of people just working with the knowledge of everybody else's opinion in the room, which like big ensembles are awesome, but there's like just not enough time most of the time for everybody's opinions to be heard, whereas like with these small groups like chamber ensembles, it means that everybody's opinion gets to be heard. So when you're working with any kind of chamber ensemble, it's like, again, you get to be like, oh yeah, like I heard this one piece, like maybe that would go really well in this program. And again, you get to like talk to all the people who are in the program. And I think the cool thing about CCE too is that, not all of us are on each program either. It's like, we all take turns with throughout the season with different concerts, and we're not all playing on all the concerts. So it also offers an opportunity to be like, oh yeah, like I just have this one piece that I really liked, and then everybody can talk, and you two figure out where to place a piece if you really want to put it on a program. And it's like, cool, maybe like my favorite piece gets on like the third concert of this season, but then it's like everybody else has a favorite piece that gets on some other concert too. So
Yeah, and that, to me, that kind of drive for conversation and collective decision making and problem solving and logistics, figuring out what needs to go where, those are all very practical skills, but they're also exercises in compassion and empathy. That word came up in our conversation with Caroline yesterday.
Yeah.
And so I guess the last question that we are sort of in this sequence was, why do you seek this out? What is this to you?
good question. It almost doesn't even feel like a seeking out. It's always just kind of like, it feels like chamber musicians always just kind of are like find each other in like a magnetic kind of way. I don't know if that makes sense, but you guys are nodding, so I think you kind of like feel me on that one. But yeah, it's just kind of like, it feels like you're just kind of like with a mini megaphone, like, hey, I really like chamber music, and then other people are like, me too. And then you're like, let's do something together.
Well, Danny, this was an absolute pleasure. Thank you so, so much for joining us for this conversation. I know that we're all in kind of disparate locations right now, but really, really appreciate the time and just your energy and everything about you. So thank you so, so much.
Well, thanks for letting me just splia on about all of these amazing things that we get to do together. And yeah, I can't wait till we like get to actually play together again.
Yeah, same here.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you, Danny.
Thanks, Danny. That was a fun conversation.
It was. Our next audience favorite is from our October 2018 season opener. That's almost exactly 2 years ago.
I think
it is exactly?
I think it basically is, or just over 2 years ago.
Well, this is an excerpt from the first movement of Francis Poulenc's trio for oboe, bassoon, and piano.
Yep.
And as a composer, Poulenc was mostly self-taught, and he was also a truly gifted improviser, which kind of fits with our season theme this season, which is great. So he became wildly popular in his time for his irreverent, anti-establishment attitude and experimental approach to musical form and texture. He was almost like a punk rocker of his time, as close as it's possible to get, and people totally loved him. So, well, hopefully you do too.
And he was part of Lacey's, and if I remember right, Talar, they're a little bit punk rock.
Oh, they were. 100%. Yeah, well, that'll
Uh,
get you out of your chair. I- So, Danny was actually the one who introduced us to our guest composer this season, Griffin Candy. Griffin, you're here. Yes, yes,
Griffin!
he's here. So, so Griffin started his musical life as a singer, and he is now pursuing his DMA in composition at the University of Michigan.
Go Blue!
Oh yeah, Laura, you went there, right?
I did.
Yes, you
Keeping
did.
a connection aside, this truly was a fun interview. So this work of his that we are premiering titled Facsimile was co-commissioned between us, New Music Detroit, and City Water, which is a Sacramento-based chamber ensemble. This work is a chamber cello concerto written for an open instrumentation, and he had some really wonderful things to say about it. We also get some fantastic cameos from his cat.
Hey Griffin, it's so good to see you. And I think I saw a little cat cameo as well.
I
Uh,
did, yeah. She as soon as I sat down, it's starting to get like ever so slightly colder, so she's just decided that she has to be on or near me 100% of the time. So
Makes sense.
Fabulous. So Griffin, tell us a little bit about yourself, and we're also curious to know what your path to music was, and specifically to becoming a composer.
oh, just the whole thing. Um, yeah, I guess in a nutshell, me becoming a composer was sort of a boomerang situation in that my first two degrees are in vocal music. So I went to Michigan State and then the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, down in the cornfields, for vocal music for bachelor's and master's degrees. And yeah, I guess long story short, kind of wrote more and more through both of them. At first, just as like a thing that I was interested in, and then sort of a thing that I was like, oh, this is maybe a hobby that I'll do, or maybe this is a side, a side gig. And then it became like a really time expensive hobby, until kind of more and more things started stacking up to sort of point me to be like, well, maybe this is the thing that you actually want to be doing. So basically, as soon as I finished my master's degree, I was like, I don't really know. I don't know if I'm a singer anymore. So it's kind of been all which one is good, downhill or uphill. It's all been
it depends
the
on
good
the
one.
context.
That's true. It's all been the good one since then. So I've kind of been, I've just sort of put on the composer hat and didn't find it time to take it off. So it's been that way since 2013. And now I just this fall, of all times, started a doctorate in composition here at the University of Michigan. So I'm cementing that decision, I suppose.
Yeah.
It sounds like you arrived at composition somewhat organically, and so could you tell us a little bit about your process?
Yeah, the sort of like, there's actually I've had about 8 billion conversations with folks who had kind of the same, at least somewhat of the same path as me, where they started as a performer and then kind of got into composing slowly and then kind of suddenly all at once. And the thing that we've kind of boiled it down to is that the reason that we all started composing is just because we had really strong opinions about stuff. That, I would be singing a Schumann song, or a Hugo Wolf song, or a Benjamin Britten song or something. And I love them all. And then sometimes I would get to a moment and be like, well, what if we went here instead? Like I would be playing along or basically respelling things and then be like, oh no, I have to practice this song. It was sort of that sort of like slowly introducing me to the idea of like, or instead of like rewriting Robert Schumann, you could also just do new ones yourself. That is a thing that people do. So process-wise, I mean, I tend to be very sort of ideas first. I mean, I'm kind of concept to execution rather than execution, and then it kind of clarifies the concept. That's the main way that I come at most things. I have an image or a memory or a story or something that I want to kind of codify into music and share with people, and then sort of determining what forces are needed for that, and and who best to bring that to the stage. In this case, it's y'all. So the overarching thing that Facsimile is about, it's 3 movements, and they're all kind of loosely tied into this central concept, which is about memory. And it's something that I have this kind of wild scrawled list of things, ideas that I want to write at some point, and that's sort of been on there for a while. Mostly because there's no possible way to sort of encapsulate the idea of memory in a piece, just because it's so tied into an outrageous amount of things that we do, and to different facets of society and different sociopolitical movements and realities, and it's a very sort of it's something that's really giant and also very personal. The first one, the titled movement, Facsimile, is about how both personal and sort of societal memories can be, or at least rarely, sort of maintain purity, which sounds like a very intellectual sort of like way to look at it. But essentially, a lot of times our individual memories don't sort of, they can be skewed by a lot of different things. They can be skewed by basically other people's opinions, or by other people sort of repeating the story of what happened a bunch of times incorrectly, or by our own like anxieties or by anything. I mean, there's a lot of, it's easy to think of memory as this kind of like solid thing that we've experienced and that we can come back to. But a lot of times it's kind of sometimes betrays us, not to sort of put it in an antagonistic light, but that also happens with historical memory. Basically that, you know, a lot of the history that is passed down to us is revisionist in some way. You know, there's very little sort of large historical fact that hasn't been polished in some way. And so this idea that something can happen either to us or to a group of people or to a city or to a country or to the world. And it's actually very difficult to get that reality into the future without it being messed with somehow. So that's kind of where the title comes from, is it made me think of in copy machines where you copy, you know, like a handout or a flyer or something, and then you copy that copy and then you copy that copy, and it kind of slowly gets a little bit grainier and like the sort of the black edges of the copy sort of like slowly intrude on the copy. The second movement, you know me by a different name, is it's kind of based on a variety of different little things. Primarily, it's based on a conversation that my wife Sue and I have had about how we feel like we're basically different people every 7 years. That like me 7 years ago, again, is basically, as we discussed, when I kind of fully put the composer hat on. And at that time, I would not have guessed anything about what my life looks like right now. And then 7 years before that, I was starting school, college, as a vocal music major, and had absolutely no idea of any of the things that the 7 years after that would look like, and basically how that we do feel like legitimately different human beings. The last one, the Transfiguration, is named after the biblical image of the Transfiguration. In sort of thinking about these first two ideas of memory, a lot of them are, both of them are kind of about memory being not solid. You know what I mean? Basically, that it's kind of mutable, and you can be a different person, and that memories can shift, and that, you know, historical memory can be combed. And I was like, is there anything like, then why do we make them? You know what I mean? What if everything kind of changes, and if everything is built on sand essentially, then why do we continue to make them? And the thing that really kind of came to mind, I guess, I don't have a good answer for that, because I think if I did, I would be a much more sort of calm and peaceful person. But the thing that kind of came to mind is that it's really just us trying to like send something down the river. It's just us trying to like continue to be remembered and sort of put our place in the world and with the people that we know. And so it was sort of this idea of like making a thing that is specifically for the future, basically like a postcard essentially that you're sending to the future. And that's essentially that's the way that I feel about sort of making memories, is that like, even though they can be skewed and they might not last forever, and even if you held a memory within yourself and then that's where it lives and there's nothing else about it, that's okay. Like it's you trying to build something. It's you trying to like put a mark on something.
But the way that you've written this piece, you've almost forced different memories of the performances, right?
Yeah.
They are going to be different from each other in a very real way, not just in the no two performances are the same bromide that we all know and love.
Yeah.
But literally, you may not have the same instrumentation on all of these different iterations and performances of this piece.
Yeah.
So how did you come to work with us?
Well, it was the main connection is through Danny Simandl specifically. My main connection with Danny is that we're both Marquette people, or at least I was a Marquette person for 7 years. That's where Sue and I moved after graduate school. So I met Danny through Marquette music stuff, and then I wrote a string quartet for her string quartet, the Thule Quartet, who are super great, by the way. And so I was talking to her about other music stuff, and she's also sort of like halvesy with Marquette and Chicago and also some other places. She's kind of like all things to all people, generally. And she mentioned, she was like, I'm also in this really, really great group called Tri Collaborative Ensemble, and you should check out their stuff. And I did, and I was like, wow, I really love ensembles like yours that sort of have this, I hate to keep talking about mutable things and flexy things, but like, it's really cool. It sort of opens the repertoire out so much to be like, this is our sort of core instrumentation. And also sometimes we supplement by doing this, or sometimes we do this. And I don't know, I think I appreciate that kind of like interest in trying a bunch of things out, different venues, different sizes, different repertoires. So yeah, I reached out after then, and we kind of, the gears have been turning since then. So
yeah.
So thank Danny Simandl.
Yeah, lucky us.
Her fingerprints are on this piece.
Yes.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And the fact that we have you, you're here,
yes.
You're talking with us and talking about your music and talking about your thoughts and everything that came before, everything that happened in your brain, everything that happened in your heart, everything that happened in your body, like while you were conceiving of this music is just, it's already informing what will be my interpretation of this piece. And that is something that's a kind of collaboration that I value it so highly, and we as a chamber group value that so highly too. Mm-hmm. And so we're so grateful to be working with you, and we're so grateful for your time talking with us today. Mm-hmm. and always, because this is a conversation and it doesn't end here, right? Yes. So thank you, from me to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. And it's been an absolute blast, and I can't wait for y'all to dig into the piece. I'm really geeked to sort of have it up on its feet and then be able to share it with folks.
Yeah.
Us too.
Yep.
For sure. Well, thank you, Griffin.
Thanks, Griffin.
Thank you. Thank you too.
So, with all of that, we have a lot to look forward to in our new season.
Yes, we do. We are starting off with Found Objects Remixed, which is presented in partnership with New Music Chicago Presents. They're a wonderful local organization that advocates for performances of new music. This program was inspired by the concert we presented back in October of 2019. Jenny Brandon's Found Objects remains the anchoring work, and we are using the same personnel. We just retooled it to include music that was all written in the 21st century, and all of it happens to be written by women.
Yes, and in January, Caroline and I, Caroline, who you heard from earlier, we are presenting a duo recital of violin sonata music, bookended by 2 short pieces for violin and piano. Laura and I have toyed with the idea of setting up a sonata series and even presenting smaller sketch programs in the future. And the latter of those 2 would feature music that we love, but haven't quite found the right parking spot for, so to speak, in our season. And this is our first foray into that new adventure. So we are very excited to present the series Paired.
And as we move into spring of 2021, in March, we are presenting a program featuring 2 giants of literature, Langston Hughes and William Shakespeare.
And personally, I am so excited to dig into this music and into this poetry. Just that dual degree English major in me is just really looking forward to this program in particular. And there's some more poetry in our April 2021 program.
There sure is. And in this program, A Garden's Timepiece is actually a program that was rescheduled from May of 2020. Susan Kander, who wrote A Garden's Timepiece, has composed some really cool stuff, and we look forward to finally featuring her.
Yes, and last but certainly not least, we are going to premiere Griffin's piece in May 2021 in person, fingers crossed, hopefully by then.
Yes.
And that is called Facsimile. We had such a great conversation with Griffin, which you heard. And just a note that the photograph you see above the title here is actually the cover photo for the score of the piece, and it was taken on a walk by Griffin's wife, Susan. So, Susan, thank you so much for the wonderful art and giving us the permission to use it.
Yes, thank you. And those are our main stage offerings, and we have a few more things up our sleeves that we are excited to share with you as they develop.
So, you have all really been there for us this year. Whether you attended our previous performances or supported us either financially or by spreading the word about us or hosting us in your home.
Yes. And Talar and I have told each other before that we really do believe our supporters are some of the best people, period. At the end of our Spare a Coffee for CCE campaign back in August, we recorded a little thank you video from Talar's apartment. This is Sure on This Shining Night by Samuel Barber with poetry by James Agee, with me singing and Talar playing.
And before we hit play on this, I just wanted to share that to me, the most important line in this song is all is healed, all is health.
Yes.
We are not healed yet, neither as a country nor as a global community. But music and all of the arts are a balm for the weary soul, and they are also a conduit for all of the conversations that make us uncomfortable that we need to have. And this song in particular really gives me the hope that we will get there. And we hope that all of you have found some beauty and healing in tonight's event.
Yes.
Kindness must watch for me.
So we couldn't leave you without some heartfelt thank yous. We have so many more people to thank than are on this page, but these are just a few of the businesses and organizations who have been supportive of us over the last few years. We have a special shout out to Ryan Bennett Photography. Ryan Bennett is a jazz drummer, photographer, videographer extraordinaire. He has been just we couldn't have done our seasons without him, really. And every single one of the ensemble photos and the performance photos that you saw in this presentation, he has taken. So check out his website. He really is a true artist. And Atlas Arts Media, who's responsible for all of our audio and video recordings. They are also material. We could not have done any of what we do without them. Check them out too. Atlas Arts Media, they have a website as well. Absolutely go over there and check them out for all of your recording needs. They are wonderful.
All right, friends, we're going to stop the screen share here. So thank you so much for joining us for this hour. We did have some glitches. Live and learn. This is our first foray in this, and this is not the last time we're going to be on here, and it's going to keep getting better. So before we sign off, let's have a toast to our new season. Cheers, friends.
Cheers. Perfect. And whether you are heading over to the CSO's virtual gala that's happening right now, or Chicago Chamber Choir's program that's happening right now, or if you have other plans for the evening, we hope that it's a wonderful Saturday night for you all, and see you soon.
Yes, and if you're catching us on the replay, whether it's in the evening or some other time of the day, we hope to see you soon as well. All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night, folks.